Okay, review video number 7 on the presidency and the bureaucracy. So the president stands atop the executive branch, and his relationship with the bureaucracy is a very clear principal-agent problem, where he is the principal and the bureaucrats underneath are his agents carrying out his will, more or less imperfectly. His relationship with the American public, though, is also a principal-agent problem, where he turns out to be the agent of the country. For example, he negotiates treaties and can order troops deployed, but he has a lot better information about those negotiations, about the costs and benefits of the troop deployment than the average person, which means that he can manipulate his asymmetric information or his privileged information to his own advantage and potentially at least against the interests of the public. It's worth noting that the president obviously nominates Supreme Court justices, ambassadors, and the directors of various cabinet departments and agencies. He serves as part of our checks and balances system in the sense that he can veto legislation or even just threaten to veto legislation in order to influence Congress. And finally, he chooses how to enforce the laws through his executive orders and his signing statements. Let's talk about the bureaucracy that the president directs for a minute. What's the historical development of the bureaucracy? Well, the bureaucracy starts off pretty small in the United States, and it starts out very politically dependent. That is to say, most people are appointed by the president or the party, and this gives you a spoil system. And with all its clientelism and patronage, right? People who do good turns for the president or the president's party get rewarded generously with posts in the government or government contracts or things like that. This is called clientelism and patronage. And this general system subsisted right up until the end of the 19th century, roughly. After that, though, as people demanded the government do more and more things and do them better, the bureaucracy starts to both expand and become more professional and more independent. It's worth noting that faith in bureaucratic solutions, right, administrative solutions to problems, first waxes, that is to say, gets stronger through the Progressive era, the New Deal era, and the Great Society era. But then that faith in bureaucratic solutions and administrative solutions tends to wane, starting with the Reagan Revolution and going right through Clinton and the contract with America in 1994. Same thing happens with the faith in markets. Faith in markets at first is fairly high in the United States in the 19th century, then it declines precipitously after the Great Depression, and then it rises again in the 1980s. So again, you have this sort of twin twin evolution of how Americans feel about both the competency of their bureaucracy and their faith in market solutions. What are some of the criticisms that people have made towards the bureaucracy more recently? Well, people will worry that the bureaucracy is inefficient, in part because it doesn't face any competition, unlike market firm or firms in a market. And so there's no real way to determine the relative value of the service that they provide. I mean, ask yourself for a minute, what should a judge be paid? There's no comparable, right? I mean, what's the value of law well administered? I mean, it's hard to put a price on that if there's no real competition. People also complain that the bureaucracy is unaccountable. The bureaucrats, at least individual bureaucrats, are not directly accountable to the public, and moreover, they tend to have multiple bosses. And so even with respect to their own bosses, like some of the videos mentioned, they can angle to satisfy some bosses and gain protection from other bosses. So they can play off Congress and the president, or they can play off multiple people within their administration. Examples of bureaucracies that are difficult to determine the value of. Think about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in the loan industry and the home mortgage industry. Think about Amtrak and the United States Postal Service, all of which are government corporations. These corporations typically run at a loss. They typically don't face a lot of competition, and people complain that they're expensive and don't work very well. Other problems with bureaucracy include crowding out. That's when the government's providing of a service tends to prevent the private sector from being able to make a profit providing that service. You have bureaucratic drift, where an agency starts doing things that it wasn't supposed to do. Bureaucratic capture, when the people who are supposed to be regulated by a government agency end up running that agency or having strong influence in that agency. People worry, for instance, that the Securities and Exchange Commission ultimately seems to favor mostly the interests of investment banks who invest in securities. This is related to the notion of iron triangles, right? Iron triangles are this cozy relationship between business, the regulatory agency that regulates the business, and a committee in Congress or members of Congress who protect and prevent the rest of Congress from investigating that agency. We also touched upon public choice theory, I think, briefly. Public choice theory, which is the idea of studying government not as a rational solution to endemic problems in society, the way political theorists might study it, but to study government as ultimately being composed of rational, self-interested maximizers. So just like people are no less self-interested because they work for government. And so people will behave to expand their prestige, to expand their areas of competence, and so on and so forth, their budgets.